UFC Vegas 74 is coming up in just 2 weeks, and while we have a little bit of a UFC drought, we have a really underrated card ahead of us. But today, I'm not going to give my predictions, I'm not going to give my breakdowns, I'm not going to talk about any of that. Today, I'm giving you the top 5 fighters that I'm going to be cheering for at the next UFC Fight Night. I'm going to tell you why I'm going to be cheering for them, and it's just a little bit of a fun series we do on the channel. So I'm going to tell you who I will be cheering for, and I'd love to know what you guys think afterwards, whether or not you're going to cheer for them yourselves, or if there are any particular fighters that you really like that are on the card. With that being said, we'll talk about it in just a second. I do want to say before we get into it, hello everybody and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels. Let's talk UFC Fight Night. So now let's get into it, that longer than usual intro. The first fighter that I will be cheering for is Andrei Arlovski. Andrei Arlovski is taking on Don'Tale Mayes. Now, Don'Tale Mayes is somebody who looks like no matter what, even if he's one of those guys that I can see getting cut from the UFC, but even if he does, he's young enough and big enough where, honestly, if he does end up getting cut from the UFC, I could see him signing to fight Francis Ngannou in the PFL. So no matter what, I think Don'Tale Mayes will be okay. However, something that I really want to happen is Andrei Arlovski to win his next fight. He's coming off of a fight where it's time for us to start worrying about his chin because his chin finally cracked. He is now 44 years old, and that is way too long to be fighting for, especially for a heavyweight. That's quite, then again, you could talk about like all the heavyweights are kind of old. I guess that's a division you can get away with it, right? But Andrei Arlovski has put in so much work. I've been watching him for so many years. I've been such a big fan of his. I've been watching him since, honestly, I started watching MMA. Just enjoyed and respected his entire career. So no matter what, and no matter who Andrei Arlovski goes up against, I feel like I would cheer for him more than most opponents. He's getting up there in age, and his retirement date is coming. It could very well be this fight. And on top of that, I'm worried for him because, again, in his last fight, we did see his chin finally get cracked. So the potential for him to go out poorly is there. What I want to see is Andrei Arlovski get a win, a nice, clean win like we've been seeing him doing, except for his last fight, because before that, he's been on a nice win streak. It's very surprising for a 44-year-old. So I hope Andrei Arlovski takes the win because, again, I'm not too big on Don'Tale Mayes myself, but Andrei Arlovski, been watching for so long. The next fighter that I will be cheering for at UFC Vegas 73 is Gurram Kattar. Now, I haven't watched him enough to see, to really build a connection with him like I have Andrei Arlovski. That dude, I've been watching for years and years and years. You know what I mean? I've been built in a one-sided relationship with myself, as we all do as MMA fans. You know what I mean? But Gurram Kattar looks like not only could he be a really great contender at lightweight, but this dude looks like he has the potential to actually be something special. He looks like he's one of those fighters that is dangerous enough to actually put a stamp in the division and make it to the top. We are dying for new talent in the lightweight division and somebody to just storm their way from the top or through the top. Yet we do have guys like Arman Tsarukyan, but it'd be really cool to see somebody with a huge danger factor, and that's what I feel like Gurram Kattar is bringing in. Plus, I kind of like the dude. He's coming off of a rocky loss, but still, the dude looks absolutely fantastic. He has been putting in work in his, I believe he's had 2 UFC fights. Let me check that. 2 UFC fights. Yes, he's fought against Mateusz Gamrot and Damir Ismagulov. 2 fighters that there is absolutely no shame in losing to. And he actually beat Gamrot, but you know what? The decision was a little bit dicey. And honestly, Damir Ismagulov did beat him, but I guess he did hear some people saying it was the other way around, right? Regardless, I am on the hype train of Gurram Kattar, and I like Jamie Mullarkey too, but I'm not really too much of a fan of his. Absolutely no disrespect, but I'm just really going to be cheering for Gurram. I hope he really makes a stamp in the lightweight division. The next fighter, though, that I will be cheering for at UFC Vegas 74 is Tim Elliott. Now, I'm not exactly cheering for Tim Elliott nearly as much as everybody else in this video that I've been talking about, but Tim Elliott has had a really rocky road in the UFC, and he always has. And Tim Elliott's one of those guys where he always throws himself into the fight. He's always willing to take damage. He's always willing to take risks. And he's always willing to fight anybody and put himself and his career on the line just for our entertainment. I understand it's not just for our entertainment, but he's one of those guys. You know what I mean? Now, Victor Altamirano has a very strong career ahead of him. So if he loses this fight, I don't see a problem with it. That's why I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm going to be cheering for Tim Elliott in this fight because Tim Elliott, how old is he now? Tim Elliott is getting up there in age. He's 36 years old. The end of his career is coming, especially in the flyweight division. You cannot be 36 in that division, so I would really like to see Tim Elliott have a really nice win against a surging contender. It'd be nice to see, and maybe he could even go up in the division, have another fight, get a couple more wins, and maybe call it quits. That would be ideal for Tim Elliott, but again, I am not cheering for Tim Elliott nearly as much as everybody else in this video, but I did want to pick a top 5 here. But I do hope Tim Elliott does take the win. Now, let's talk about the guy that I will be cheering for most, and I'm going to be cheering for no matter who this dude fights. I'm cheering for Jim Miller. Jim Miller is taking on Jared Gordon. Short notice, by the way. Jim Miller is one of my favorite fighters of all time. Take everything that I just told you about Andrei Arlovski, watching him growing up, watching every single fight of his career, going back and watching fights before I was a UFC fan, multiply that by 10 for Jim Miller. This dude is legitimately one of my favorite fighters of all time. Also, excuse me, I have something in my eye here, but man, Jim Miller did not look good in his last performance. He actually looked horrible against Anthony Hernandez, and I'm very, very worried for his career. If he loses to Jared Gordon here, the potential for him to, you know what, he's 39 years old, he's dealing with Lyme, and we could see it, like the day's coming where Jim Miller is just going to get cracked and it's going to be horrible because we know Jim Miller is going to fight until UFC 300. That's going to be another year at least, assuming my math is right. I'm scared for Jim Miller. If he loses again, it's going to be heartbreaking because he looked significantly slower in his last fight. He had a nice win streak before that. His age has been showing, but it really showed in his last fight. Just because I really love Jim Miller as a person, I'm going to be cheering for him, and I hope he's okay. I hope he finds a quick submission here against Jared Gordon. And Jared Gordon is one of those guys where, thankfully, he doesn't present enough danger where I really see it being like an Hernandez performance against Jim Miller. I don't mind Jim Miller's chances in this fight, but if he cannot show up the way he showed up in his last fight. He looked slow, he looked aged, and he looked like he was not necessarily, you know what, I guess you could say a shell of his former self, you know what I mean? My heart's going to break if Jim Miller loses. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. No matter what, no matter who Jim Miller goes against, I will be on the side cheering for Jim Miller, and I don't know if I actually want to bet on him because I know he can cheer for him even more. I'm certainly never going to bet against Jim Miller. I love betting on fights, but I will never bet against Jim Miller because I do not want to find myself cheering against him. Love him as a person. Love him as a fighter. So much respect. Now, let's talk about the last fighter I'm going to be cheering for, and it's the co-main event of the evening. Alex Caceres. I talked about this a little bit in my full card breakdown video. Alex Caceres, he's been one of those guys where I've been watching UFC since I got into it, and it's been well over a decade now with my dad and my uncle. And every single time that we saw Alex Caceres over all of these years, it was win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. He's just one of those fighters with a spotty record, kind of like Angela Hill. But all of a sudden, come somewhere around 2020, Alex Caceres pulls out a win, pulls out another one, pulls out another win, and actually gets some knockout wins and looks vastly improved every single time that we see him. Alex Caceres has been on a roll. He had one hiccup, one loss recently, but came back with a spectacular performance. Every single time that we see Alex Caceres now, and it's been so long in his career, he has been fighting for so long. He's improving, and he's finally getting the attention and recognition that he deserves. I'm on the Alex Caceres train because I would really like to see him, a guy who had such a spotty record before and had problems breaking into the top 15 of the UFC, and now Tapology here has him sitting at number 16, but of course, that's not official. I would absolutely love it if he won against Daniel Pineda, and I feel like he will win. I think it's a very good matchup for him. He's very durable and a very good counter-striker. I hope that he gets another fight after this, breaks into the top 15, and in an ideal world, while I don't think it's going to happen, I'm going to be cheering for Alex Caceres all the way to the top. Could you just imagine? He's the guy to dethrone Alexander Volkanovski. Will it happen? Highly doubt it. I don't believe that he will get past maybe the top 10 of the division. But this dude, if he's improving, continues improving at the rate that he's been improving, it's very possible. And I'm all over the train. I am so excited to watch Alex Caceres fight. I love seeing him improve every single time we see him. And he's an exciting fighter. He's really come into himself, and I cannot wait to see him perform next Saturday. And that's why I'm going to be cheering for Alex Caceres. I'm on the Caceres train. Let's go. He's second to Jim Miller, though, because Jim Miller is one of my favorite fighters of all time, as I mentioned. So, guys, this is where I'll leave it up to you. Let me know what you think down below about the people that I'm going to be cheering for. And are there any fighters that you in particular will be cheering for at UFC Vegas 74 on the UFC Fight Night? Let me know down below. I would love to talk about it there. And thank you so much for watching. If you want to continue watching anything on the Clenbat channel, there will be 2 videos for you right now to watch. Click on one of them. They're pretty great. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you there. Take care.